Okay, so now it's time to start working on the baffle. First, let me go ahead and show you the material that I'm going to use for the baffle. This is what I'll be using. It's a UHMWPE, which stands for Ultra High Molecular Weight Polyethylene. And the reason I'm using this is because it is very machinable, so it cuts just as easily as wood and some other things. But more than that, it's very slick, so all the wood chips and dust that are going to be blowing at high speeds through the separator are going to just kind of slide off of this, and that's really what I'm looking for. In addition, this material is also very abrasion resistant. Well, it's going to be wood dust, but you're essentially going to be sandblasting this thing on a constant basis, and I just want a material that I can put in there and never have to worry about it again. This particular sheet is actually static dissipative as well. It's black, and I actually ended up getting this for free because, as you can see, it has a little bit of a curvature to it. But I think once we put the threaded rods in there, it'll straighten it out. The next question is, what height should that baffle be from this lid? And what I came up with is about 7 3/16 inches will give me about a 3/4 inch space between my my inlet tube here, my inlet elbow, and where the baffle is going to sit up here. So that's what I'm going to go with. Now, I need to measure what diameter the garbage can is going to be at that distance. So I don't know whether you can see my marking here, but this is where I need to measure the diameter of the trash can. It gets narrow on the bottom, so it's not perfectly vertical. So I need to figure out what the diameter is here so that I can cut the baffle to the correct size. Now I just have this piece of wire here, and I'm just going to cut it down until it fits into that space perfectly that I need it to. Not going to bend it at all, just straighten it out a little bit. And I'm just going to trim it a little piece at a time until it gets down there. So as you can see, I have my wire in there. It's not really flexed at all, so I'm just going to pull it out. And this is about the length I want. I'm going to measure it without putting any kind of force on it. And we've got 19 3/16. That's going to be the major diameter of my baffle. Alright, so we're ready to draw our circle here on our polyethylene. Just going to use the same trick I did previously. I've already scribed the center hole here. I'm not going to be cutting a hole this time or drilling a hole, but it'll help keep my nail here in place. As you can see, the inner and outer diameter are marked with pen. I don't know how well that shows up on camera, but it runs about there's the inner and there's the outer. This part is all going to get cut out here, and then this will stay. So you want about 120 degrees of sealing surface. Sealing surface meaning this will go all the way to the edge of the garbage can, and it will restrict airflow in this area. This will be the drop zone. This gap here between the inner and outer diameter is about 1 3/8 inches. Typically for general purpose woodworking use, you want somewhere between 1.25 and 1.5 inches or something like that. So I just split the difference in 1 3/8. Generally, the smaller the gap, the better it is at picking up fine dust, but it has a tendency to get clogged more. I've got all my stuff marked out. Like I said, we're going to cut out this section right here, and we're going to cut along the outer edge over here. And the best way to do that is probably on a bandsaw, so that's what we're going to do. You could use a jigsaw, whatever. If you're willing to drill a hole through here, you can use a router as well and then just plug the hole, but I think bandsaw is probably the easiest option, so that's what we're going to do. Okay, there it is, kind of roughed in.
Okay, so I'm going to clean this up with the router a little bit. I already did one edge. I don't know if you can see that, but I'll show you later. Basically, I'm not going to drill a hole here. I'm just going to push the nail down into there. And it seems, since we're not actually cutting a lot of material, it actually seems to, you know, there's not a ton of torque there, so it's actually pretty manageable. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for the smaller edge now.
Alright, so I'm done cutting it. Here's what it looks like. Pretty nice and smooth. You'll notice it still has a little bit of a potato chip form to it, but I think once we bolt it and tighten everything up, it'll flatten out. Just needs a little bit of pressure applied, it flattens out. It's really nice and smooth, and I think this material will work well. I just took a knife and chamfered all these edges about 45 degrees as best I could, just to remove any kind of burrs or anything. So let's go ahead and check the fit real quick. That's where our mark is, so it'll sit in there just like that. And that looks pretty nice, actually. So yeah, next thing will be drilling the 3 holes to connect all the pieces together now. So the next thing we need to consider here is how to attach this baffle to the lid. And for that, I'm going to use this 5/16 inch rod. I just have a really long piece here, and I'll cut it to size. The reason I like this is because it'll be very easy to adjust the height. I also see wood dowels are also quite popular, but I like that this has a much smaller diameter, so it's going to cause a little bit less disruption of the airflow. Now, it is also important where you drill your holes for your rod connections for your baffle offset. Think about how the airflow is going to look within this chamber here. It's essentially going to be like a mini tornado or a hurricane, right? The center is going to have very low rotation rate compared to the outside, and that's exactly what we want, right? That's the whole purpose of this. We're flinging particles towards the outer edge so that they can get caught in the bottom of this garbage can. So the air velocity is going to be highest along the edge and lowest toward the center. So putting my rods out here is going to provide the best stability. However, it's going to cause the most airflow disruption, and there's going to be a lot of stuff that can get caught on the threads. So I'm actually going to bring it in to about here. Now, it is important how you orient your baffle relative to your inlet elbow. So this baffle needs to go, this edge here of your larger diameter needs to go right underneath the outlet of your elbow. So kind of like this, if that makes sense. If you rotate it too far like this, you can have some recirculation here and some turbulence and maybe get things caught on this edge here. So I'm going to put it probably about 1 inch over there, just like that. And there'll be about maybe 3/4 to 1 inch offset between the baffle and the bottom of this elbow. And that's just so that when your air is circulating through here, that it doesn't get caught on this elbow. Because if I have this right up against here, it's all going to get caught behind this elbow, and that's not what we want. So I'm going to put this baffle just low enough so that it'll prevent a lot of that. So my most important rod is going to be the one that's closest to the outlet of my elbow here. And I'm just going to come along this line that I drew previously. And like I said, I don't want it to get in this main airflow path right here. So I will probably go about 3 inches. So I can already drill my holes for my lid. They're marked, and this elbow actually aligns everything, so neither one of these can move relative to one another. Even though they're not glued, I can go ahead and just drill those. Okay, now it's time to do the holes on the baffle. I'm just going to use the previous divot that I made here to center this, and it looks like we are pretty well centered here. Now I'm going to flip this over. And once again, I need to make sure that this is oriented where I want it to relative to the outlet of my elbow. So this is where my outlet is. And that's fine. Like I said, I'm just eyeballing this. This can be anywhere within, you know, this general region. Just checking whether this looks relatively centered, and it does. So there we go. Three concentric holes in all of our pieces. Okay, so I've installed the weather stripping. You can see that here. There is a little bit of a gap, which is expected. But really it's not that big of a deal because this part is going to be covering that anyway. And so we're ready to start gluing this up. All right, it's been a few days and I'm ready to take all these clamps off, see what this thing looks like. And so here we go. That's the final product there. Everything looks pretty good. I wiped up a little bit of the glue while it was still wet, so I don't have any glue in the seams here. Everything looks pretty good. Let's give it a quick fit check. All right, well, it looks like everything fits fine. There we go. But I just have my threaded rod through my baffle here, and it is oriented like this so that, once again, the leading edge here should be right under your elbow. So we're at about 1 inch space here between the bottom of this and the baffle, and that's pretty decent. We can go up a little bit further, but there's got to be some space here so that when those wood chips and everything are whipping around in there, they don't get caught on the back of this. So you do want to leave some space, and it looks pretty good in there. Give you a quick look in there. Hopefully you can see that. Obviously there's going to be some gap because the wall of that garbage can is ribbed. And I'm going to go ahead and mark this threaded piece right here because that's really what's driving the height. Okay, so I've marked my threaded rod at about 9.5 inches. Let's see here. Yeah, right about here. I don't know if you can see that, but 9.5 inches. That'll put the end of this about 2 inches above the top surface of this plate. And I can always trim that off later. That's not going to be a big deal. All right, I have all my threaded rod attached. You can see there, a little bit of thread peeking out there, just in case I need to adjust it sometime in the future. Here's what it looks like in the back. That's not going to be an issue. And most of this is smooth because this is going to be my primary dust chamber here where it's circulating. And I want this to be smooth so that things don't get caught on the threads and cause any kind of clogging or anything like that. So That's gonna go just like that. What we're gonna do now is actually put the PVC pieces in, the elbow and this splitter piece, and just attach those before I put the baffle on. All right, so for the next part, I'm gonna go ahead and install this first. It's a good idea to go ahead and wipe it off with some isopropyl or something like that. But yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and put this in here. What I will do first is I'm gonna bead the lip of this so that once I push it in there, it'll seal nicely along this edge. So that's in there like that. Wipe off the excess at the end, but for now, I'm gonna go ahead and leave that like that. So now what we're gonna do is, I've got this PVC cement here. I'm gonna prime it, and then I'm gonna follow up with the cement here. Okay. Now we're gonna go ahead and install this. Okay, so that's on there. It didn't go as far down as I would have liked. You can see it's like barely at the surface here. It didn't go much further on than that because it is a friction fit. And it's gonna be pretty tight, so I may have to cut this off. Okay, so I cut it off at 2 inches. Once again, you want about half the diameter of this sticking it down into the garbage can, the dust collector. So this is 2 inches here. Not my prettiest work, but it'll serve its purpose. So next thing we need to do is put the elbow on. First we need to figure out which direction it needs to go. So looks like right there is perfect, so it needs to go that way. It wouldn't work if it was going the other way because it's important where this edge is. And the other thing we need to know is how close it's going to be to the trash can side. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put it in there and adjust it where I need it to go. And I'm gonna go ahead and mark this seam here right at the orientation that I want it at. Okay, so everything's cured for 24 hours and it all feels very sturdy. Pretty happy with it actually. This is aligned just the way that I want it to. So it's just time to put the finishing touches on. I'm just gonna apply some silicone around both of these joints here where they meet the lid. And then I'll put on the baffle and we'll call it done. All right, so we've got silicone on all our joints where the PVC meets the lid. I'm pretty confident that this is pretty tight at this point. All right, the only thing really left to do is attach my baffle to my lid. All right, so we're gonna measure that from the surface of the baffle to the top of my nut is 6 1/8. So I'm going to do the same thing with the other ones at the same distance. So the screws are on here, they're nice and tight. Only thing left to do really is to attach this to the lid and we're done. I just cut the thread rod a little bit shorter. But essentially that's the finished product. There you go, I'll show you that. It feels very stable. This stuff isn't going anywhere, which I really like. So yeah, that's all there is to it. Gonna go ahead and do the final fit check here. And it fits really nicely. Yep, so that's the most complex part of the project, is getting this lid assembled. But really not too bad. So yeah, there we go. That's the Thien Baffle lid right there. Pretty happy with how that came out.